My name is Vanessa Marsh. I'm 36. 6 months ago, I approved a $3 million commercial loan on a Tuesday morning, and by Saturday my own mother told a stranger I didn't exist. I flew 19 hours to attend my sister's wedding. When I arrived at the venue, my parents blocked the entrance and told me to leave. Only family is allowed, my mother said. You weren't invited. I stood there in a dress I'd picked out 2 months earlier, holding a gift I'd wrapped the night before on a hotel bed, and watched my mother's face show absolutely nothing. No guilt, no hesitation. Just a door closing. I'd underwritten every vendor contract for that wedding, not figuratively. Literally my signature, my credit line, my name on 4 separate agreements totaling $41,000. 3 days later, she called. Not to apologize. She called about a bill. And what I said next, she didn't expect it. Before I tell you what happened, take the like and subscribe, but only if you're actually enjoying this. Drop your city and your local time in the comments too. I read every one of them. Now let me take you back to last October. I live in Frankfurt, Germany. I work for an international bank, structuring credit lines for mid-market companies across Europe. It's a job most people in my hometown of Millbrook, North Carolina, can't picture. My father drives a forklift at a distribution center. My mother works the front desk at a dental office. When I got promoted to senior underwriter 4 years ago, my mother's response was, "So you're basically still just doing paperwork." That's who I've always been in that family. The one who left. The one who thinks she's better. Meanwhile, my younger sister, Chloe, 27, stayed in Millbrook, dated a boy named Tyler Ashford, whose family owned the biggest car dealership in 3 counties, and became, in my mother's words, the daughter who actually understands what matters. Tyler proposed in September. Chloe FaceTimed me the next morning, glowing ring shoved into the camera. I felt real happiness for her. I told her so. Then my mother, Linda, leaned into frame from the kitchen, smiling in that tight way she does when she's performing warmth she doesn't feel. "Don't go spending a fortune on a plane ticket," Linda said, before I'd even asked about dates. "It's a small wedding." "Mom, it's Chloe's wedding. I'm coming. We'll see." I should have paid attention to how hard she was working to talk me out of showing up. I didn't. I booked 5 days of PTO instead. Out of the 22 I get a year, and told myself this would be different. 2 weeks later, Linda called. Not Chloe. Linda on a Wednesday, which meant she'd been rehearsing this since she woke up. "The venue needs a credit card on file to hold the date. Your father and I, well, our credit isn't great after the truck refinance, and Chloe's card limit is too low." A pause timed for maximum effect. "You'd only need to put down the deposit, the rest gets billed after the event. You'd be doing your sister a huge favor." "How much total?" "About $41,000, but the deposit's only $3,800. $41,000 under my name on paper I'd be legally responsible for. I sit across the table from business owners every week and tell them exactly why a structure like that is dangerous. A deposit, that's a fraction of the total. A balloon balance due. After the service is rendered, no recourse once the event has happened and the goods are consumed. If a client brought me that structure, I'd flag it before the ink dried. I knew precisely what I was agreeing to before I said yes. I said yes anyway, because she's my mother, and I was raised to believe that love is measured in what you're willing to sign your name to. I'd co-signed my father's truck loan at 23. I'd wired Linda $3,200 at 27 for a plumbing emergency that turned out to be Chloe's spring semester. I told myself every time that this was the last one. It never was. Over the next 2 months, I watched the wedding take shape from 4,000 miles away and from the outside. Chloe made a group chat called Ashford Wedding Crew. I found out about it when she accidentally forwarded me a message meant for the group, a photo of bridesmaid dresses, captioned "Vote Ladies." I wasn't one of the ladies. I never got added. I called to ask about the seating chart, the schedule, whether she wanted me to say a few words. She said she'd get back to me. She never did. I called again a week later and it went to voicemail. She texted an hour after that. "So busy with planning, talk soon." 2 weeks before the wedding, she posted a rehearsal dinner photo. Linda beaming beside her, arm around her shoulder, both of them in cream-colored dresses like they'd coordinated. Caption: "My whole family, my whole world." I counted the people in that photo. 4. I wasn't one of them. I stared at it long enough that my phone screen dimmed twice. I told myself it was probably just for the wedding party. I told myself the invitation was implied, that you don't formally invite your own sister. That being family meant I didn't need a card in the mail. I told myself a lot of things that October. The way you do when the alternative is admitting your own mother doesn't want you in the room. If you've ever caught yourself making excuses for someone who wasn't making any for you, put a 1 in the comments. I want to know how many of us are carrying that exact weight right now. The flight was brutal. Frankfurt to Atlanta, Atlanta to Raleigh, then a 2-hour drive to Millbrook. My round-trip ticket ran just under $1,300. The motel, 4 nights, at the only clean place in town, came to $540. Chloe's gift, a set of monogrammed luggage she'd mentioned, wanting during a random call in the spring, was $410. Call it $2,250 out of pocket before I'd even touched North Carolina soil, on top of the $3,800 deposit, already gone from my account. Somewhere over the Atlantic, I opened the Notes app on my phone and drafted a toast. Nothing long. 2 minutes, maybe. I wanted to tell the story of 6-year-old Chloe, assigning me the role of the minister. Every time we played wedding with her stuffed animals, never the bride. I thought it was funny. I practiced it twice under my breath, quiet enough that the man in 14C wouldn't think I'd lost my mind. I landed and texted my mother. Just landed. Can't wait to see everyone tomorrow. 40 minutes of silence. Then, okay, busy, see you tomorrow. 5 words. No exclamation point. No safe travels. Nowhere excited. 19 hours of travel and 5 words back. I remember staring at that text at the gate while they called my boarding group, thinking about screenshotting it to my friend Priya with the caption, "Am I overreacting, or is this weird?" and then not sending it. I put the phone away and boarded. I checked into the Wayside Inn a little after 10 that night. The clerk asked if I was in town for the Ashford Marsh wedding. Apparently the whole town knew. I said yes. She said, "How lovely. You must be a close friend of the family." I said something like that, and went upstairs and hung my dress in a closet that smelled faintly of an old air conditioner. I set the wrapped luggage on the desk, propped my phone against the lamp, and called Chloe. 4 rings, then voicemail. I texted Linda, checked in. What time should I arrive at the venue tomorrow? An hour later. Ceremonies at 2, that was it. No come early. No let's grab breakfast first. No your father wants to see you. I sat on the edge of the bed and looked at myself in the mirror across the room. 19 hours of travel, over $2,000. Spent $41,000, signed for. And my mother couldn't manage more than 5 words at a time. The last time I'd been back in Millbrook was 2 years earlier for my grandmother's funeral. Linda barely spoke to me. Then either, too busy greeting neighbors and whispering with Chloe through the whole service. At the reception, someone asked how many children she had. "Just the one, Chloe," she said. I was standing 6 feet away holding a paper plate. I ironed my dress that night like I was preparing for a job interview, which, in a way, I was. I was auditioning to be part of my own family. I lay in that motel bed, doing the math I'd been avoiding for years. The $41,000 sitting on paper with my signature on it. The car repair I'd wired money for at 24. The property tax shortfall at 29. 6 years of being the daughter who solves problems, and 3 years running of being the daughter who isn't in a single family photo. The Christmas, Linda forgot to call until 11 p.m. The graduation photos on the mantle, 3 of Chloe, 0 of me. If I kept going like this, kept signing and flying and pretending the silence didn't cost anything, what exactly was I protecting? Not my family. Just the story I told myself about having one. I'd become the woman who buys her own seat at the table and still gets seated by the door. But lying there in the dark, I chose to believe one more time. Maybe tomorrow would be different. Maybe Linda was just stressed. Maybe when I walked in, she'd hug me and say she was glad I made it. I set my alarm for 8 and told the ceiling, out loud, like an idiot, "This is the last time I show up hoping for something they've never once offered me freely. Tomorrow, I'd find out whether hope was worth what it had already cost me." Millbrook is small enough that everyone already had opinions about my career before I ever set foot back in it. My cousin Deanna once told me, half joking, that people in town assumed I did something with computers because nobody could explain what a credit underwriter actually does. The truth is simpler than they'd guess. My entire job is reading the fine print. Other people skip. I look at a company's cash flow, its collateral, its exposure, and I decide whether the risk on paper matches the risk in reality. I catch the gap between what a deal looks like and what it actually is. I've built a career on not being fooled by a good-looking contract, which made it almost funny in a bitter kind of way that I signed my name to 4 of the worst structured agreements I'd seen in years. For my own family, without asking a single one of the questions. I'd ask a stranger. I thought about that a lot on the drive from the airport, the rental car humming past tobacco fields going gold at the edges, past the Baptist church, where I was baptized at 11, past the diner that still had the same faded awning it had in high school. Millbrook doesn't change. It just quietly forgets who used to live in it. I closed my eyes. Sleep came slow and thin, the way it does the night before. You already know something is going to break. Saturday, 1:40 in the afternoon. Cedar Hollow Vineyard sat on 11 acres just outside Millbrook, all white string lights and gravel paths, and mason jars stuffed with wildflowers. It looked like something off a bridal magazine cover. I parked my rental at the far edge of the lot, already half full with pickup trucks and a few SUVs that screamed Ashford, money, and smoothed my dress. Picked up the gift box and started walking. The air smelled like cut grass, and someone's barbecue smoker running behind the barn. My heels sank slightly into the gravel with every step. I spotted my father first, standing near the entrance in a rented suit that didn't quite sit right on his shoulders, shaking hands with a man I didn't recognize. When Ray looked up and saw me, his face changed. The polite smile dropped. His eyes went wide, then narrow, then down at his shoes. He didn't wave. He turned and walked inside. I kept going 15 yards. 10:05. The doors opened and my mother stepped out. Linda wore champagne silk, her hair set, her makeup done, her jaw locked like poured concrete. She planted herself directly in my path, hands clasped in front of her. Not open, not welcoming, a barricade. Vanessa. Her voice was low, controlled. What are you doing here? I'm here for Chloe's wedding, Mom. I made it. She didn't hug me. She didn't move. You need to leave now. I blinked. The gift box felt suddenly heavier in my hands. What? I flew 19 hours. Lower your voice. Her eyes flicked to the guests filing past behind me. People are watching. Mom, I'm your daughter. She stepped closer, close enough that I caught her perfume, the same one she'd worn my entire life. Her voice dropped to a whisper sharper than any shout. Only family is allowed inside. You weren't invited. I stood there. A couple in their 60s passed us, and the woman smiled politely. Linda smiled back, warm, easy, practiced. The second they were gone, her face reset to stone. Not invited? I signed every contract for this wedding. I paid the deposit. This isn't about money. This is about what's appropriate. Appropriate? Vanessa, please, don't make a scene. Behind her, through the half-open barn door, I could see white folding chairs in rows. Garlands of eucalyptus strung from the rafters, a string quartet tuning near the altar. Everything I'd funded with my signature. My father reappeared in the doorway, glanced at Linda, then at me, then at the ground, hands in his pockets. He said nothing. From inside, a warm, confident voice called out. Linda, who's that? Everything all right? I watched my mother's spine go rigid. I watched her paste on a fresh smile before turning halfway toward the voice. That voice belonged. I'd learn in about 3 seconds, to Barbara Ashford, the groom's mother. The woman who'd apparently been told my mother only had one daughter. Barbara stepped through the doors in a dusty rose dress and a strand of pearls, the kind of woman who chairs the hospital gala and still has time to arrange her own centerpieces. Her gaze landed on me, open, expectant. Linda, everything okay out here? Oh, it's nothing, Barbara. Just a distant cousin who got turned around on the schedule. A cousin. Barbara studied my face. I thought you only had one daughter, Linda. The silence lasted 2 seconds. It felt like 20. Linda laughed, bright and brittle. I do. This is Vanessa, a cousin from out of state. She's confused about start time. Barbara nodded slowly, glanced at me once more, touched Linda's arm. Well, ceremony's in 10 minutes. We should head in. She disappeared back through the doors. I looked at my mother. She looked at me. There was no guilt in her eyes, no flicker of apology, just fear. Cornered, animal fear, The kind that shows up when a lie you've been feeding for months is finally about to choke you. A cousin, I said. Vanessa, please. You told her you only have one daughter. How long? How long have you been telling people I don't exist? She didn't answer. She glanced toward the parking lot, willing me gone. That was when I understood. She hadn't forgotten to invite me. She had erased me, on purpose, for a long time. Every part of me wanted to walk through those doors and say, loud enough for Barbara and Tyler and every guest inside to hear, that I was Linda's eldest daughter, and I had paid for every flower, every plate, and every note that quartet was playing. I didn't. I crouched and set the gift box on the stone step, gently, like it still mattered. Keep the gift, I said. It's for Chloe. Linda's shoulders dropped half an inch. Relief. She thought it was over. Thank you, Vanessa, this is really… Don't explain. I heard you. I heard every word. I turned and walked back down the gravel path, past the wildflowers, past couples still arriving hand in hand, past my rental car, and then into it. I sat down, closed the door, and cried. Not the loud kind. The kind where your chest shakes and your mouth stays shut. Because even alone in a parking lot, you've been trained not to make a scene. I want to ask you something before I keep going. If your own mother looked you in the eye and called you a cousin in front of a stranger, what would you have done? Tell me in the comments. Pay or walk. I read every single one of them. I sat there long enough to hear the quartet start canon in D through the open windows. The ceremony was beginning without me. I pulled out of the lot, and in the rearview mirror, the vineyard shrank to a speck of fairy lights. I hadn't raised my voice once, I hadn't slammed a door, and for the first time in my adult life, leaving quietly felt like the strongest thing I'd ever done. Back at the Wayside Inn, I sat on the bed still in my dress, mascara smudged, hands finally steady. The toast I'd drafted was still open on my phone. I closed it without reading it and opened my laptop instead. 4 emails sat in my inbox. Vendor confirmations I'd skimmed over the past 2 months and never really read. Now I read every word. Cedar Hollow Vineyard, contract holder, Vanessa Marsh. Deposit paid $1,400. Remaining balance $16,200. Due within 5 business days of the event. Millbrook Catering Co., contract holder Vanessa Marsh. Deposit paid $900. Remaining balance $13,100. Due within 5 business days. Paddle and Vine Florals, contract holder Vanessa Marsh. Deposit paid $800. Remaining balance $6,700. Ashford Studio Photography, contract holder Vanessa Marsh. Deposit paid $700. Remaining balance $2,200. My name on every line. My card number, my signature, scanned and attached as a PDF. Every contract structured the same way. Deposit up front. Balance due after the event, no cancellation clause, once services began. I'd underwritten deals for a living, and somehow signed the one structure that gave me 0 leverage, and my family every incentive to disappear. Total already gone. $3,800. Total outstanding. $38,200. I closed the laptop. The vineyard was probably mid-reception by now. Toasts being raised. Linda hugging Chloe. Tyler spinning his bride under the string lights. The Ashfords clinking glasses with their new in-laws. All of it running on paper signed by someone they'd just called a cousin. My phone rang at 9:40 that night. The screen read Aunt Deb. Deb Colson, my mother's older sister, 61, retired school administrator, the kind of woman who says exactly what she's thinking and has never once apologized for it. Linda called her difficult. Everyone else called her honest. Vanessa, where were you? I didn't see you at the ceremony. I told her everything. The blocked entrance, the whisper, the word cousin. Barbara's question. Linda's answer. Silence on the line, long enough that I could hear Deb breathing, slow and deliberate the way she does when she's deciding exactly how angry to get. She told them you don't exist. She said. She only has one daughter. Lord. A pause. At the reception tonight, your mother stood up during the toast and said, and I'm quoting her, our little family, Ray, myself, and our Chloe. I sat there and thought it was strange. I should have said something. It's not your fault, Aunt Deb. No, it's Linda's, and she's going to hear about it. Another pause. Sharper this time. Those vendor contracts. Whose name is on them? Mine. All 4. Deb went quiet again. When she spoke, her voice had shifted, still angry, but with something harder underneath it. Something strategic. Then you listen to me. Honey, your mother told a room full of people you don't exist. You don't owe that room a single cent. I didn't sleep much that night. The Wayside Inn had thin walls, and the couple 2 doors down was watching a game show at full volume. But it wasn't the noise keeping me up. It was the arithmetic: 19 hours of travel, $2,200 in flights, hotel, and a gift left on a stone step. $38,200, still sitting on my credit line, due in 5 business days, for an event I'd been physically removed from. In underwriting, we call it exposure without control. You're on the hook for the outcome of a decision you have no say in. I'd flagged that exact structure in a client's file 2 months earlier and told him to walk away from the deal. I hadn't extended myself the same courtesy. I thought about Chloe's Instagram captions from the engagement announcement, about how she used to introduce me to her friends in high school as my sister. She's kind of a genius with money stuff. Proud of it back then, before it became inconvenient to explain why the genius wasn't in any of the wedding photos. I thought about my father standing in that doorway with his hands in his pockets, saying nothing, the same way he'd said nothing for 36 years. Whenever Linda decided how a room should be arranged, somewhere around midnight, I stopped waiting to feel forgiven and started doing what I actually do for a living. I opened a blank note on my laptop and began writing down every date, every dollar amount, every text message timestamp, exactly the way I'd build a case file for a loan committee. Not out of spite, out of habit. If I was going to be treated like a line item, I was at least going to be an accurate one. I labeled the file the way I'd label any other. Exposure summary, no counterparty protections, immediate action required. Sunday morning, I woke to a notification from Instagram. Chloe had posted a carousel 14 photos from the wedding. The first was the 2 of them at the altar, Chloe in lace, Tyler in a charcoal suit, the vineyard glowing gold behind them. The second was the family portrait: Ray, Linda, Chloe, Tyler, Barbara, and her husband Gordon. 6 people, 2 families joined, 1 family short a daughter. Caplet surrounded by everyone who matters at Cashford forever. I read it 3 times. Then I opened my email. The venue's invoice had landed overnight, automated and cheerful, a little grapevine logo in the header. Thank you for choosing Cedar Hollow Vineyard. Your remaining balance of $16,200 is due by Thursday. Below it, invoices from the caterer, the florist, the photographer. All time-stamped Saturday evening. All addressed to Vanessa Marsh, all with 5-day deadlines. $38,200, due Thursday. I looked at the Instagram post again. Everyone who matters. Then I looked at the invoices. Something shifted. Not a snap, not sudden rage, quieter than that. Like a lock that had been stuck for years, finally turning. I wasn't angry yet. Anger would come later, in waves, in the shower, in the middle of a client call I couldn't focus on. Right now, sitting in that motel room on a Sunday morning, in Millbrook, North Carolina, I felt something simpler: clarity. I was the only person who had paid for this wedding. I was the only person not in those photos. And I was the only person receiving invoices for a party I'd been thrown out of. Something had to give, and it wasn't going to be me. Not this time. Sunday afternoon, my phone buzzed with a voicemail from Chloe. Not a call. She hadn't tried to actually talk to me. She'd left a message the way you check off a task. I pressed play. Hey, Vanessa. So the wedding was amazing, like literally perfect. The vineyard looked incredible, and Tyler's family was so sweet. Anyway, sorry. Things were kind of weird yesterday. Mom said it was for the best, and honestly, I think she was right. It would have been a lot to explain. But I just wanted to say thanks for helping with the vendor stuff. Seriously, you're the best big sister. Let's catch up soon. Okay, love you. I listened to it twice. Sorry, things were kind of weird. Not, I'm sorry Mom turned you away at the door. Not, I should have stood up for you. Not, I had no idea. Mom said it was for the best. She knew before the wedding that Linda was going to turn me away, and she'd signed off on it, probably helped plan it. And then that last line, you're the best big sister. I used to love hearing that. It made me feel like the sacrifices meant something. Sitting in that motel room, I heard it differently. She calls me that when she needs something, only when she needs something. I didn't call her back. I set the phone face down on the nightstand and stared at the ceiling. The invoices were due Thursday. My family had told a room full of people I didn't exist, and my sister had left me a voicemail that amounted to thanks for paying. Sunday night, the Wayside Inn had gone quiet. The game show couple next door finally checked out. I sat cross-legged on the bed with my laptop open and typed into the search bar exactly the kind of question I usually answer for other people. Who holds liability on a signed vendor contract when the signer has no relationship to the event? The answer was consistent with what I already knew from the other side of the desk. The person whose name is on the contract holds the obligation, but the person whose name is on the contract also holds the authority. I could authorize payment, I could decline it. I could formally redirect the invoices to the party that actually received the services. I picked up my phone and called Cedar Hollow Vineyard. It rang 3 times. Cedar Hollow, this is Marissa. Hi, Marissa. This is Vanessa Marsh, contract holder for the Ashford Marsh event this past Saturday. Oh yes, Ms. Marsh, beautiful event. What can I help with? I need to inform you that I will not be authorizing the final payment on this contract. I wasn't present at the event, and I'm formally requesting the outstanding balance be redirected to the event hosts. A pause. Okay, I'll need to pass this to our manager. But can I ask, is there a dispute? No dispute. I'm simply not authorizing the charge. The invoice should go to the Marsh family in Millbrook. Marissa took my email, confirmed the request, said someone would follow up Monday morning. I hung up and called the caterer. Same script, same calm voice, same result. Then the florist, then the photographer. 4 calls, 11 minutes total. I didn't yell, I didn't threaten. I didn't explain why. I said one word, over and over, politely and firmly, no. When I was done, I closed the laptop, brushed my teeth, and slept through the night for the first time in 3 days. Monday morning, I changed my flight. Instead of staying through Wednesday like I'd planned, I booked the first available seat back to Frankfurt, a 6 a.m. departure through Atlanta. I packed in 10 minutes and checked out of the Wayside Inn before dawn. The same clerk was on shift. She smiled and asked how the wedding was. I said, the drive to Raleigh took 2 hours. On the way, I passed through Millbrook one last time. Main Street was quiet, just the diner, the hardware store, the Baptist church where I was baptized. I drove past the house I grew up in. The porch light was still on. I could picture what was happening inside. Linda at the kitchen table with coffee, still riding the high of the reception, Ray reading the paper, the house full of leftover cake and congratulations cards. My name not mentioned once. When I was 10, Linda told me, Vanessa, you're the oldest, you have to be strong for Chloe. I'd been strong for 26 years. Strong through Chloe's childhood asthma, scares that reshaped the whole family's routine. Strong through every financial crisis, every unanswered call, every holiday I spent alone abroad, pretending the time difference was the reason, not the distance. I turned onto the highway and didn't look back. 9 hours later, I landed at Frankfurt Airport, gray sky, drizzle, the most beautiful weather I'd ever seen. I turned my phone on in the arrivals hall. No missed calls, no texts. Nobody in Millbrook had noticed I was gone, or cared enough to check, but they'd notice soon. The vendors would start making calls by Tuesday. The invoices would land in Linda's inbox by Wednesday, and then my phone would ring. I was sure of it. If you've ever had to leave a room quietly, because raising your voice would have been used against you later. Tell me in the comments. I want to know how many of us learned to disappear instead of fight. Tuesday, 3:00 p.m. Frankfurt time, 9:00 a.m. in North Carolina. My phone rang, Mom on the screen. I let it ring 3 times, then picked up. Vanessa. Hi, honey. Sweet light, the voice she uses when she wants something. How was your flight back? Fine. Good. Listen, I just got the strangest call from the venue. They said you removed your payment authorization. The bill is $38,000. How do we handle this? We don't handle it, Mom. You handle it. A beat of silence. Excuse me? I removed my authorization because I'm not responsible for an event I wasn't invited to. You told Barbara Ashford I was a distant cousin. You told her you only have one daughter. That's not a misunderstanding, Mom. That's a choice. Longer silence now. I could hear her breathing change, the sweetness draining out of it. After everything I've done for you, she said. This is how you repay me. You raised me. I'm grateful for that, but you also stood in front of your daughter and told a stranger she doesn't exist. Both of those things can be true. You're blowing this out of proportion. $38,200. That's the proportion. The line went dead. No goodbye, no argument, just a click and silence. I set the phone on the counter and stared at it. My hands were steady. My heartbeat was normal. And my apartment was quiet. Genuinely quiet for the first time in months. She called back 40 minutes later. Different tone this time. No honey, no sweetness, full throttle. Do you have any idea what you've done? The venue is calling me. The caterer is calling me. I'm getting invoices forwarded to my email, with your name crossed out and mine written in. Do you know how humiliating that is? I imagine it's about as humiliating as being called a cousin at your own daughter's wedding. That is not the same thing. You're right. Yours cost $38,000. I raised you. I fed you. I drove you to school every single day for 12 years. And now, because of one little misunderstanding, you're going to bankrupt your own family? It wasn't a misunderstanding. Fine, Vanessa. You want to play this game? I'll tell everyone what kind of daughter abandons her family over money. Go ahead. I'd rather be the daughter you badmouth than the daughter you pretend doesn't exist. That stopped her. I heard her pull in a breath, sharp, involuntary, like she'd stepped into cold water. You don't mean that, she said, quieter now. I do. A long pause, and then the weapon she always keeps in reserve. Your father could have a heart attack over this stress. If he ends up in the hospital, that's on you. There it was. The trump card. I'd heard it when I moved abroad, when I skipped a Thanksgiving, when I stopped sending money without being asked first. Dad's health is between him and his doctor, I said. Not me and my credit card. She hung up again. This time, I didn't stare at the phone. I put the kettle on and made a cup of tea. And by the time it finished steeping, I noticed my hands weren't shaking anymore. That was new. In underwriting terms, she'd just tried to collateralize her husband's health against my guilt. And for the first time in my life, I didn't accept the terms. I'd spent my whole career telling clients that the strongest position in any negotiation is the one where you're not afraid of the outcome. Sitting in my own kitchen, 4,000 miles from Millbrook, I finally believed it about my own life. Aunt Deb didn't wait for permission. She never has. Thursday morning, the same day the vendor invoices were due, she picked up her phone and called Barbara Ashford directly. She'd kept the number from the wedding program, tucked into her purse. Classic Deb. I wasn't on the call. She told me about it afterward and didn't spare a single detail. Barbara, this is Deb Coulson. I'm Linda's older sister. We met briefly at the reception. Oh yes, Deb. Lovely to hear from you. I'm calling because there's something you need to know. Linda has 2 daughters, not one. The older one is Vanessa. She's 36, lives in Frankfurt, works in international finance. She's the one who signed every vendor contract for that wedding, every single one. And on Saturday, Linda stopped her at the door and told her to leave. Deb said the silence on Barbara's end lasted a full 10 seconds. I beg your pardon? The woman Linda introduced as a distant cousin. That was her firstborn daughter. Vanessa flew 19 hours to be there. She paid the deposit out of her own pocket, and Linda turned her away because she'd been telling your family the Marshes only had one child. Barbara's voice went cold, thin. The kind of cold that comes from a woman who prides herself on knowing exactly who she's doing business with. Why would Linda do that? You'd have to ask her. But I can tell you this. That girl flew 19 hours, signed every check, and got turned away like a stranger at the door, and she still didn't make a scene. That's more grace than my sister deserves. Barbara thanked her, said she needed to make some calls, and hung up. The fuse was lit, and Millbrook was a very small town. I hadn't asked Aunt Deb to make that call, but when she told me she had, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time seen. For the first time, someone in my family said out loud, "What happened to you was wrong. I want to ask you something." Has anyone ever been that person for you? The one who broke the silence when no one else would, or are you still waiting? Tell me in the comments, and subscribe, if you want to hear how the rest of this plays out. Thursday afternoon, I sat at my desk in Frankfurt with a fresh cup of coffee and systematically closed every open account. I emailed each vendor the same message, written with the precision of someone who writes credit memos for a living. This email serves as formal notice that I, Vanessa Marsh, the undersigned contract holder, do not authorize any further charges to my card on file. I am formally requesting that all outstanding invoices be redirected to the event hosts, the Marsh family of Millbrook, North Carolina. Please confirm receipt, 4 emails, 4 confirmations within the hour. Marissa from Cedar Hollow even replied, "Understood, Ms. Marsh, we've updated our records." I called my bank next, canceled the card linked to the contracts, ordered a replacement with a new number. $38,200 in outstanding charges would now route directly to the people who'd thrown the party. The deposit, $3,800, was gone, paid months ago, non-refundable. Combined with travel costs, I was out about $6,000 total. I sat with that number for a while. $6,000. The price of learning. I was never going to be enough for them, no matter how much I signed, paid, flew, or showed up for. Honestly, it was a bargain. Barbara called Linda that same afternoon, according to a mutual friend who happened to be at Barbara's house when it came through. "You lied to us, Linda," Barbara said steady. "Not loud. The Ashfords don't do loud. You told us you had one daughter. We welcomed your family into ours based on trust. That trust is broken." Linda tried to explain it away as a private family matter, that she and Vanessa had been estranged. Estranged? Deb says, "Your daughter signed every contract for this wedding. That's not estranged. That's exploited." Barbara told her flatly that the Ashfords would not be covering the $38,000. "That's between you and your vendors," she said. "We didn't sign those contracts." Apparently, neither did you. Tyler confronted Chloe that evening. "You have a sister," he said, "an actual sister, and she paid for our entire wedding, and your mother kicked her out?" Chloe cried. "It's complicated, babe. It's not complicated," Tyler said. "It's a lie. Your family lied to my family on our wedding day." Chloe and Tyler ended up taking out a personal loan for the $38,000, with Barbara and Gordon co-signing. Not out of generosity, but because their name was attached to the event, and they didn't want vendors coming after them. The fairy tale wedding now had a monthly payment attached to it. Millbrook is the kind of town where everyone knows your business by Tuesday and has an opinion about it by Wednesday. The story moved through the church, the diner, the school pickup line, shifting slightly with every retelling, but the core stayed the same. Linda Marsh hid her eldest daughter, turned her away at the wedding, and then sent her the bill. Linda's neighbor of 19 years stopped her in the church parking lot. "Linda, I had no idea you had 2 girls. How come I've never met your older daughter?" Linda tried the script she'd been rehearsing. "Vanessa lives overseas. We're not as close as I'd like. It's a painful subject." The neighbor just nodded slowly. "Deb tells it a bit different. Linda stopped going to that church. Ray got quieter than usual, which is saying something. Stopped sitting on the porch in the evenings. People who saw him said he looked like a man carrying something he couldn't put down." 2 weeks after the wedding, a text from Chloe, long rambling. I could almost hear her crying while typing it. "Vanessa, I'm so sorry about everything. It all got out of control. I didn't know Mom was going to say those things to the Ashfords. I swear. Tyler is furious with me. His parents barely look at me. The loan payments start next month, and we're already behind on the apartment deposit. I know this is a lot to ask, but could you maybe cover part of the balance, even half? I'll pay you back, I promise. You're my sister and I love you, and I just need help right now." I read it 3 times, looking for one specific sentence. An apology for turning me away. An acknowledgement that she knew and didn't stop it. What happened to you at the door was wrong. It wasn't there. The whole message was about her problems. Tyler's anger, the loan, the cold shoulders. My pain wasn't mentioned once. It was a crisis update dressed up as an apology. She apologized for the mess, not for the wound. I wrote back carefully. "Chloe, I'm sorry you're dealing with this. I can't help financially. The boundary I set isn't about money. It's about being treated like family, real family, not the kind that gets erased when it's inconvenient. When you're ready to talk about that, and not invoices, I'm here." She didn't respond that day, or that week. I wasn't surprised. She'd never known what to do with me when I wasn't useful. A month after the wedding, an email from Ray. My father doesn't email. He calls twice a year and talks about the weather. When I saw his name in my inbox, I sat up straight. "Vanessa, I know I should have said something that day at the vineyard. I didn't. I stood there like a post while your mother handled it, and I didn't open my mouth. I don't have a good reason. I was a coward. That's the truth. Your mother and I are working the bill out with the vendors. We don't need your money. I'm writing because I wanted you to know I'm sorry. I should have walked you inside. I'll carry that. I read it 5 times. It didn't fix anything. He didn't confront Linda, didn't demand an apology, didn't explain 36 years of choosing peace over his own daughter. But it was honest. The first honest thing anyone in my family had said since this started. A week later, I wrote back, Dad, thank you. That means more than you know. I'm not ready to come home or pretend everything's fine. But I read your email and I'll keep reading it. Short, careful. The door left open exactly 1 inch. Not wide enough to walk through. Not locked either. 6 months have passed since that Saturday at Cedar Hollow. I got promoted, director of underwriting for the region. My manager cited composure under pressure in the review. She didn't know the half of it. I started seeing a therapist, not because of the wedding, because of the 36 years before it. We've been unpacking something she calls functional over-responsibility. The belief that if I perform well enough, sacrifice enough, carry enough, the people I love will finally see me. It's the engine that powered every check I wrote, every flight I booked, every time I said fine when I meant this hurts. I video call Aunt Deb every other Sunday. Linda and Ray have paid off 12,000 of the 38, using retirement savings. The rest sits on Chloe and Tyler's loan, a monthly source of tension in that household. Barbara still hasn't fully forgiven Linda. Linda hasn't called me, hasn't emailed, hasn't sent so much as a text. Deb says she refers to the whole thing as Vanessa's tantrum. I suppose that's easier than calling it what it actually was. I don't hate my mother. I've spent a lot of therapy hours making sure of that. But I've stopped pretending her version of love didn't cost me something it did. And pretending otherwise was quietly draining me, one signed contract at a time. If you're the one who always pays emotionally, financially, for a seat at a table that was never built for you, maybe it's time to stop applying for a spot in someone else's photo and build your own table instead. I didn't lose my family that day at Cedar Hollow Vineyard. I found out exactly what I was worth to them, and then I found out what I was worth on my own. That second number turned out to be a lot higher. That second number, the one I calculated on my own terms, in my own apartment, with nobody's approval attached to it, was the only figure in this entire story that ever felt fully mine. If this story's hit close to something real for you, hit like and subscribe. I share stories like this every week about family, boundaries, and finding your voice when the people closest to you try to talk over it. Check the description for another story I think you'll connect with. I'll see you in the next one.